then I'm sorry, say it again. Yes. So we had a meeting scheduled for the 20th of December and it got blown out, as you remember. And so it's rescheduled for today. I would like to begin by roll call. Brad, Hamakua here, and Carol Ignacio. I don't see her here. Is she on Zoom? No. And Nikki Hubbard. Here. And Rhonda Pollard.
Here.
Thank you. Desiree Cruz had an excused absence, and Crystal Kua. Hi. And Bobby Nishimura. Very good. Thank you. What? Yeah. Okay. So the first order of business listed on the agenda, and there are 2 copies of the agenda and the associated documents that are available to be passed around. If anyone would like to look at that, I think actually some of the documents would be of interest to you. And so first order of business is because we had Heather, our county council representative, Heather Kimball, is going to need to attend another meeting at 6 p.m. We're going to have Heather address us initially here. I think she has several items that she would like to speak to. So before any other items on the agenda, I'd like to ask Heather to take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And just so you know, I see Desiree here on my screen. So she may have had an excuse, but she's actually present. Anyway, Happy New Year, everyone. Can you guys hear me over in the theater okay?
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, great. So there are a few things that I wanted to go over. I'll start with the YPO long-term steering committee, and I see that we have a couple of members of that steering committee here on the line. I did want to let you know that they have requested that a member of the AC be present to participate in those meetings to serve as an advisory capacity, and I think you folks have nominated Brad for that. So we are looking at having our next meeting sometime early into this month, early February. Again, trying to really assess like what's the process I think we're going to use moving forward with this steering committee. I wanted to just note that Risha from County R&D, she and I spoke and she told me a little bit about some of the things that they've been doing in Hohoiki and Milili'i, and so I'm hoping she can share them with the steering committee at our next meeting so they have a little bit of an idea of what sort of resources are available for us. And then I also had a chance to go to Haina, which is the area on Kauai that is also over visited. But they have a great program in place there, and we did learn about it before with the steering committee, but I have some pictures and some information to share about how they've kind of dialed in a community-based management plan for that location. So I'm hoping that those things will be something that Brad can share with you. I also wanted to mention Pepe'ekeo. We've talked about the accesses there in the past. One of the things that will be coming through the council soon, and perhaps the AC may want to weigh in, is we are actually going to have the landowner that who has the public easement on the south side of Huhudua that has been the contentious easement for vehicular access. He's going to convey that to us to the county so that we can manage it and keep it open for the public access. So that'll be coming forth as a resolution, and I hope anybody that's interested in that particular issue, maybe the AC could write a letter in support of that dedication to the county. Another area that we're looking at is the park next to the property that is owned by Hamakua Health. So they have the piece on Lehua where their main facility is, and then they have that piece where they just tore down the old infirmary, and they'll be able to build more clinical space if we can give them a little bit of the park property that's not being used to develop their parking. So the idea is that we would carve out a little bit of Hamakua Park up there by where the buses park and where that parking lot is, to give to them to use for their parking, and then they can actually build more clinical medical space on the piece of property that they own. I don't think that that is there may be a rezoning component where the AC could possibly weigh in as far as support, but maybe not. It may just be a subdivision piece. So I'll keep you guys up to date on that, but they just got a major grant to develop that medical facility. So we want to move this as quickly as we can. And then just finally, I wanted to share, and it's up to you, Chair, how much time you want to give for Q&A. But we just recently put out for public review a draft, a short-term vacation rental bill. And if you read the most recent Hamakua Times, I did a brief write-up on what the bill is supposed to do. It is a fairly complicated bill, and I do have sort of a boiled down frequently asked questions document that I'm sharing with people, but the main things to understand is that we are hoping to do a couple of things. Basically ensure that everybody that's operating a transient accommodation is doing so in a legal and safe and careful way, following all the same standards. Right now, unhosted rentals are regulated through our short-term vacation rental law, but hosted rentals are not regulated at all, which means none of the standards that apply to transient accommodations apply to hosted rentals. In addition, those standards are pretty vague and unenforceable. For example, one of the standards says the short-term vacation rental or transient accommodation must meet the character of the neighborhood. Well, you can imagine who gets to decide what the character is and if somebody violated it or not. So we're trying to put specific measures in there, like no parties over a certain size, no commercial activities, things like that, things that we can actually enforce and make sure that everybody is following those same standards. Additionally, like the notice of violation that would happen in the past was kind of just like it was a $500 fine, and you got a letter that said, please stop doing that, and these are the rules you should follow. We've made them a little more stringent, so we hope that it's a little bit more of a incentive, if you will, to follow the standards for good behavior, as a good neighbor, as a short-term vacation rental. Some of the things that I think have concerned folks is we are still allowing people to to rent out a portion of their home if it is their primary residence at any time. We have made the determination that it's appropriate for a residential use. If you live there and it's your house, you can rent out a bedroom to someone. We just want you to register. And that is regardless of zoning. We're going to grandfather in hosted rentals where there's a caretaker on site that was in operation before this bill comes to pass, and that's because otherwise we'll get sued for taking. Unfortunately, if we let somebody do something, we can't just take it away without providing some sort of compensation, reasonable compensation for that. So we are doing a grandfather period. There are a few other sort of nitty-gritty details to this that I won't go into with too much today. I will say that there is a video available of like just an overview of the bill. If you haven't seen that yet, it is on YouTube, and that just kind of runs through what we're intending the bill to do. There's also a meeting on January 20th at 5 o'clock. It'll be by Zoom, I don't have the link for that yet. I apologize, but as soon as I do have it, I'll send it out. And that'll be another online webinar, but it'll be a little bit more interactive than the first meeting because we do want to get community feedback. We'll do some polling through the course of the presentation. And then we're also planning to do some community meetings in person. We realize Zoom is not great for everyone, but because it's such a complex bill and it's pretty controversial, we'll do as many as we need to, but we'll limit them maybe to 30 or 40 people so that we can actually have a productive conversation. So I'll let you folks know a little bit more about that. We are also putting together a website where you'll be able to find the most current version of the bill, responses to the frequently asked questions, and then you'll be able to submit your own questions and comments on the bill. Again, I will share that with Ton to distribute to the AC once that is available. I was actually paying for it when I logged into the Zoom meeting, so it's very nearly ready to go out to you folks. And that's about it. I'm happy to answer questions, but I would probably defer most of them to the meeting on the 20th, since I'm assuming most of them will be responded to in that conversation. But if there are quick conversations, maybe specifically from the AC members, I'm happy to answer those if the chair allows. And that's it. Thanks, Ton.
Are there questions from the audience? Heather, would this be an appropriate time to ask what have been the controversial issues, or would you rather save that for
the controversial issues with respect to transient accommodations?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So first, I think the most controversial, I got a lot of pushback when we first put it out to the public, like, oh my gosh, you're gonna destroy my livelihood, because people didn't quite understand that we weren't shutting folks down if they were renting out a part of their primary residence. Like if you live there, it's a whole different scenario. You're there to watch the guests, make sure they're not doing anything that's disruptive, things like that. So once we've clarified that we're not shutting down folks, their personal property rights in any way, I think folks were a lot more comfortable. The other things that are controversial is the bill does require, as far as registrations, that everything be permitted. And I'll tell you right now that the Department of Public Works and the administration feel pretty strongly that we need to make that requirement, that you can only do commercial operations providing transient accommodations in buildings that have been permitted. And that's mostly for public health and safety as well as environmental safety. But there's a lot of folks that have been doing TARs in unpermitted structures. And so we're trying to figure out if there's a way that we can do a conditional approval or something like that to give people time to get permits. But ultimately, I think we are going to require everybody to have fully permitted structures in order to do TARs. It's just the right thing to do for safety, and both for public safety and for the environment. There are heavier fines. So like I said before, the penalties for violating the standards before was a $500 fine and a letter to not do that anymore. Now the first initial fine is a $10,000 fine, and then the director, if they fail to resolve the violation of the standard, it's 2 times the highest daily rate. Basically, if we've got a transient accommodation rental that goes for $2,000 a night, a $500 fine is not really that much of an incentive to change behavior. So we did want to make the stick a little stronger. That's kind of the main stuff that we're getting. We got a little bit of concern from like the agricultural folks that we would be restricting people that are migrant workers, migrant farm workers, or temporary farm workers, but our bill language exempts folks that receive housing as part of their compensation, or a portion of their housing as compensation for their work on site. So they are exempted from that. Once we discuss that through, I think we're all good with the members of the farmers union.
Thank you. No other questions? Yes, sir. Yes.
So what you just mentioned about the migrant workers, now how about workaways, woofers? Is it only for a commercial farm, or is it for people who are gonna be having people come stay at their place in trade for lodging and to work at their place? Is there a
Yeah,
minimum acreage, or is it commercial only? Is there any limitation to your adjustment?
Yeah, it's the primary thing that would exempt a farm worker or a woofer is that they receive the accommodations as part of their compensation, or they're not for the work. So if they're working on the farm and we're not requiring like any type of farm plan or anything at this point as the bill is currently drafted. It's just that they have to be compensated with the accommodations, and then they would be
Okay,
exempted.
but you keep saying a farm. How about a private
Yeah.
homeowner who has a woofer come work and trade for a place to stay? Does
Yeah, no, that
qualify?
would be exempted. That would be exempted. Yeah. So I guess it is for any type of work. It doesn't actually have to be farm work. If
Okay.
they are not compensated and they are compensated with the accommodations, then they're exempted from the TAR.
Okay, now is this a proposal that is happening, or is this already gone through?
This is a very early proposal. So thank you for that question. That's a very important point. There's a draft out there because we needed to start with something to have a conversation around. And so we're starting to put that draft out into the public, but it has not even officially been introduced yet. I got a nasty email from somebody like, I oppose Bill 23. And I'm like, what is Bill 23? I don't know. This doesn't even have a bill number yet. So if there are going to be at least 6 public hearings that will happen before this bill becomes law. Because it is an amendment to Chapter 25, it has to go through both planning commissions. So you'll have a minimum of 2 committee hearings in council, 2 planning commission hearings, and 2 council hearings at a minimum. But that's only after it's been introduced. And looking at the amount of feedback and stuff that we're getting from folks, I think it's probably March before introduction. So I'm estimating at least 9 months before this becomes law, and it'll probably end up looking quite different than it looks now once there's all that public
Okay,
input.
so the way it stands right now, then, if someone were to advertise for a woofer, they would be in violation and could be fined?
Not at this point in time, that is not regulated.
Okay, all right.
If it's hosted, if it's on your personal property, yeah. Mhm.
Thank you, Heather. The second item on the agenda, North Hilo Community Council meeting update regarding Lapapoihoi Point. Nikki, is that your territory?
Hi, sorry, I have to face my back to you both mostly. I had put this item on the agenda for our December meeting because there was going to be road closures at Lapapoihoi Point. And this meeting got postponed, so we can now say that the road closure happened and the repairs are complete and you can access the park as usual. And that was basically the report from the council where we had learned that closure. I also have the next agenda item.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the Hamakua Bridge information, I had thought it would be useful to share with the action committee because it is regarding infrastructure. The meeting packet has the communications that were received. And so you can read through them. I just wanted to let everyone know that they are doing outreach into the communities affected by the upcoming bridge repairs. And they are asking for input, and a lot of people have participated in giving feedback for that item. So if you want to read the initial requests in the packet. And then the next item
Yes.
is the Hawaii County Chapter 25 zoning and Chapter 23 subdivision code update. That project is underway, and we want to encourage everyone to participate. There are public open house meetings scheduled for January 17th. And 18th. You can visit the website cohcodeupdate.com and see the meeting announcements. Those are in person There are two locations on 17th, which would be in Kilo and Waimea. And then on the 18th, the other two locations are in Kona and Pa'u, I believe. So if you're interested in either of those, you can check out the website.
Is that the building code?
Yes, specifically chapter 25 zoning. Oh, sorry, no. Thank you, Brad. It's specifically chapter 25 zoning and chapter 23 subdivision code update,
That's
not building.
Zendo curve.
No, that's different. That's not what we're talking about today.
Is that what those two?
No,
Oh, thank you. There were 2 points that I thought are significant, that I'd like to comment on, from what Nikki presented. The first is that the meeting of the subdivision code, subdivision and zoning code is on the 17th, which is when our next meeting is scheduled to occur. And consequently, in discussions with the planning department, we've decided that we will postpone that meeting on the 17th, which is only a week away after all. We have not yet decided when we will reschedule that meeting for, that will be made public as soon as we know. Let's see. Proceeding on. The next item on the agenda is the subcommittee reports. I'm sorry, actually, because Heather was going to need to be leaving, we skipped forward. I believe at this point, we should be reviewing the minutes from our previous meetings. Has everyone on the committee had the chance to review those minutes? Are there any questions, comments? I believe the first meeting was on October 18th. Can I hear a motion to confirm the minutes from October 18th?
I'll make a motion to approve the October 18th minutes.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor of approving the October 18th minutes? Say aye. What?
New discussion.
Yeah, any discussion? And so, all in favor of approving the minutes for October 18th, say aye. And
Let's get the online vote.
yeah,
We have to represent Rhonda and Desiree.
yes, Rhonda, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And is Desiree here?
Yep.
Oh, Desiree. Yes.
See
Thank you.
you.
And as far as the November 15th minutes, is there a motion to confirm November 15th minutes?
I also make a motion to approve the November.
Is there a second? Any discussion? And all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
I'm sorry.
And so going on, our first order of business is subcommittee reports.
Hold on. We gotta get public comment.
Oh, yes, okay, public comment on agenda items. There are actually 2 methods of introducing public comment. The first would be that at this point, anyone from the public is welcome to present testimony. And oftentimes this testimony at this point has been limited to approximately 3 minutes. And understanding that we have a lot of people here with us and that time is limited, if there is anyone who would like to make testimony now, we'll probably want that to be limited to 3 minutes. The second option is that as elements of the agenda come forward, the public is welcome to testify at that time also. So whatever your preference would be, that would be fine. If there's anyone who would like to speak now to any issue, then we would welcome that. Would you like to come forward? State your name, please.
Thank you. I'm Francine Roby and I live in Ahualoa. And I just wanted to make a comment because I couldn't find a place that this fit neatly in with the agenda or future topics. There seems to me to be an urgent need to discuss the impact of the recent storm on communities in the Hamakua district. I live in Ahualoa. And Ahualoa, and I think Kukahele were the last two places to get power. I've run into neighbors that have had 19 days that they were without communications. I've had other neighbors who are elderly, whose roof was crashed in and had people not come by to drop off a Christmas gift. The rain would have poured into their living room. I've heard of other people who just tripped on a rug during that time and were luckily able to get the emergency vehicle to get to emergency care. But we have infrastructure issues about the road. We have portions of the CDP that talk about strengthening the infrastructure for response. And while civil defense folks did call me because I'm with Neighborhood Watch and the Community Association and CERT, there wasn't a real good strategy for how they were going to check on people or deliver any kind of response. The electric people were very responsive, but the situation was extremely dangerous every single day of the 4 days that we're out. I personally evacuated and then came back the next day when the power came on, lost all my food, filed claims, but those aren't viable as FEMA claims, only building damages, and the county didn't even qualify for any FEMA damage. So it's urgent because this just happened. If we don't start reflecting on the lessons learned, the actions that worked, the actions that didn't, we're going to forget about it and file it in the back of our brain with hurricanes that never happened. And we're just not going to get things fixed and in shape to prepare us in accordance with the goals of the Hamakua Community Development Plan as expressed by all of us who live here. Thank you.
Would there be any other further testimony at this point? And of course, that you are welcome later as an agenda item here.
I'm speaking for Barbara Scarth, who runs an Albany store. She has a current concern for the new subdivision development up at the top of the hill above the park. She's concerned about drainage and also about congestion on that roadway of 40 new homes. So if that could be addressed and what are the potential impacts with those two things, drainage and traffic? Thank you.
What was your name, sir?
Dana Moss.
I had indicated moments ago as Nikki was presenting that there were two items that I thought that were important. And the second of those two was that we've mentioned the agenda, and I have had passed around the agenda and also the important documents associated with that agenda to any of you who like. You certainly, if you should have, it will probably make its way to you. However, it's also the case that you can access the Hamakua Community Development Plan on your computer, and it will lead you down. As you scroll down, you'll be able to get to the agenda for this meeting and the last several meetings, and also, more importantly, the documents that we will be referring to over the course of this meeting. So if there's no further testimony at this point, I'd like to call on the YPO Wahipuna Subcommittee.
Excuse me, this is Corey Harden on Zoom, and Chuck Flaherty and I are both waiting to comment, maybe some other folks.
Okay, yes, let's see. Actually, we're not seeing any hands or let's see. Maybe we get rid of the chat section.
There,
Yes.
and then ask to unmute. There you go. Oh,
I'm sorry. Are you recognizing me? I'm sorry. This is Chuck Flaherty.
Actually, I think, yes, you're on the screen. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure actually that what I have to discuss is on the agenda, which I just accessed. Perhaps it is related to agenda item number 5, status on all action committee discussion. Because I was just participating in the Kona Community Development Plan Action Committee. And am aware of the fact that there are a number of the action committees that are struggling with roles and responsibilities within the context of the general plan and the individual community development plans. Could you, is it okay if I provide testimony with regard to that issue?
Yes, Chuck, I was at the Kona Community Development Plan meeting this afternoon, and I thought what you had to say was extremely important, and also Corey. It's not at the present moment on our agenda. However, what you mentioned, the last item on the agenda, I think number 5, action, let's see. Yeah, status on all action committee discussion. I think it might be most appropriate if we would leave your comments for that item. Would that be acceptable?
Yes, sir, it would. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Corey? Oh. Corey, would that be acceptable to you also?
I can't quite hear everything. I would like to comment now because I'm trying to get to a class, and I'm commenting on announcements and item 2, both about the subdivision and zoning code changes.
Yes, proceed.
Okay, going for it. Okay, I first want to thank everyone for your service on this committee. And I'm speaking for Sierra Club Hawaii Island Group. And we're concerned about the cumulative effects of changes to the zoning and subdivision codes, combined with revisions to the general plan and reduced staff support for the action committees and issues with planning department memos. The zoning and subdivision code, I went to one of their focus groups yesterday. It went really fast. There was a lot of information There was a lot of jargon and alphabet soup, you know, the acronyms. And then they suddenly said, okay, look at this very detailed slide and choose your priorities. And you had to like scan a QR code, or you had to pop onto a different website, trying not to dump yourself off of Zoom in order to vote. So a bunch of us kind of got left in the dust on that one, and the people who were tech savvy were just voting away like crazy. So where am I? Sorry. And the consultants on the rewrite come from the states, and so they do have the benefit of ideas from other places, but they're going to have a great deal of trouble understanding Hawaii, the culture, the environment, and how important the land and water are. A second change, the general plan is being revised, but when you look at it, it does not show what got changed, so you don't really know what's going on. A third issue, as you know, on the action committees, the planning director abruptly withdrew the staff support. It is unclear whether he had the legal authority to do this. And we're not aware of any withdrawal of staff support for developers submitting applications. Everything else seems to be business as usual. We do understand that some action committee members feel that they are better off this way, and we respect that. But we feel it's vital that planning keep the committees informed about everything that's going on, zoning and subdivision changes, proposed development, proposed wells, and permit applications. And fourth, on memos, we are concerned by reports that the planning director invalidated all past internal memos, including one regarding protection for historic and cultural resources. Last, the planning director was required to set up a firewall because his consulting firm had clients with applications to the county, but we don't know of any memo with written procedures for this. So in summary, the cumulative effect of all these factors tends to favor moneyed special interest and makes it difficult for the community to provide constructive and effective input. And Sierra Club hopes to bring this issue to County Council soon for discussion, and I hope you folks will watch for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. And I think the issues you brought up are quite important. You may wish to comment again as we reach section 5 on our agenda item business. So again, going back to subcommittee reports. Oh, Nikki.
Out of order and do the housing subcommittee.
Yes, please.
Because our guest is on.
Yes.
What subcommittee?
Housing subcommittee.
Hi, I'm Nikki and I'm on the action committee subcommittee regarding housing. And we voted to approve a housing subcommittee to further the action listed in section 5.2, expand affordable housing options. Community action number 25 says that we should engage community associations and volunteers with self-help nonprofits to promote construction of homes for eligible buyers in our district. I just wanted to share a little bit of stats on our district and put a little bit of context into the need. At this time, title guarantee is showing that the median price for a home in Hamakua is about $575,000. That's the median. The payment for a home buyer on a loan with 5% down would be approximately $4,100 a month at the current rates. That would require a borrower to be making over $900 a month or $111,600 annually, assuming they have no other debts. Meanwhile, the median income in our district didn't cite around 50,900. The 2020 US Census said the median household income for a kilo is 70,000, which is still drastically lower than the income needed to qualify to buy the average district. So I'm sorry I don't have that number cited, it's just lower. So it's a known fact that housing opportunities are limited here. So the action items to support nonprofits working to provide housing solutions, it led me to search for organizations doing that work locally. I've become aware of the following organizations, and in the future, I hope to bring them here to present to all of you. about what they're doing, and so we can learn how we can support them. So we've heard in the past from county housing, but we'll have them come again. There is representative from Big Island Housing Authority that I'm in touch with. They did successfully expand the Papua senior housing, which was just completed last year. And there's USDA self-help programs. DHHL is also an entity that would be considered in the housing conversation. Hawaii Island Community Development Corporation is another self-help nonprofit. There was mention of Hamakua Housing Corporation. I believe that organization was created to deal with plantation homes, and I don't know that they're currently doing anything. I wasn't able to contact. Yeah, I'll keep trying. And there are other smaller groups hosting conversations around the affordable housing issue, and individuals like myself who are willing to do work such as offering education, which is integral in fostering homeownership in the community. So we'll explore that more in the future. And the last but not least organization that I've come across and am passionate about is Habitat for Humanity, and they're building homes for qualified individuals as well. I have Patrick Kearney on the line, who's the director from Habitat for Humanity. He's going to share a little bit with us if he can. Are you still on, Patrick?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, I can see you. All right, so if you can share with us what you folks are doing and what you guys need, so how we can help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just have a few slides just to kind of give everybody a little bit of background about Habitat and our programs. So we're Habitat for Humanity Hawaii Island. We've built 62 homes scattered across the island. Not very many on the Hamakua coast. We did the Rayla family after their home burned down in Lower Pawilo. But we're always looking for opportunities to build on the Hamakua coast. I'm very familiar. My in-laws are from Honoka'a, so I spent a lot of time in Camp 8 down there. So special place in my heart. But you know, we do new home builds and we do some critical home repairs. We've built, as I mentioned, about 62 new homes and about 68 critical home repairs across the island. We are part of Habitat for Humanity International. We operate in over 40 countries, 70 countries and 42 million housing solutions across the world. We're a Christian housing ministry. There are 5 affiliates in the state. We are one of those. We merged with Hale Aloha Hilo in 2017 and started working across the state, or across the island, excuse me. The biggest point is that we build simple, decent, affordable homes for home ownership opportunities. And those are families making a household income between 30 and 80% of the median income. So a family of 4 on the Big Island is about, annual income is about 72,000 and below. So it changes every year, but these are hardworking families who just haven't had the opportunity to climb that ladder of success. We look at different levels of need as families get qualified, whether it's substandard housing or overpayment of rent, which most families are overpaying their HUD standard, which is you should not pay more than 30% of your monthly income towards housing, regardless if it's rent or home ownership. That's the standard. And most people here are paying well over that, 50, 60, even 75% of their income towards housing, which is a huge, huge problem that we have. Families need to be willing to partner with us and put in sweat equity as we build their home with volunteer labor. And they have to be able to repay a mortgage that's usually 30 years at no interest or very low interest, depending on the funding source. They also need to receive homeownership education and financial education. So in a nutshell, how it really works is once we've identified the family and funding and the land, we need to come up with 100% of the money before we can select the family. We build the home with volunteer labor and the partner family sweat equity, that's family and friends. And that volunteer labor and sweat equity that goes into the house is usually saves the cost of construction around 40% of the home. Once the home is completed, we sell the home to the family and provide a no or zero or low interest mortgage, and there's no profit that's made on the house. And we have the home appraised at market value, and once we get the appraised value, we deduct the actual cost of our construction from that, and we place a kind of a soft second mortgage behind it so that the family can't speculate the market and try to sell the home and get a windfall of the equity that's built into it, because there's quite a bit of equity when we're finishing homes. Our homes average cost is right now it's gone up significantly, but a 3-bedroom, 2-bath is about $250,000. We just finished a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, or 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath in Puna, and that was $280,000, and the appraised value was something like $390 or something. So big piece of equity already into the house. We become the banker after that, and we service the mortgages and place those mortgage payments to go into future builds and support future builds. The impact that we can have with this really truly grassroots organization, average cost of a house, as we just mentioned, 500 and something, 585, I think Nikki mentioned. The average home for ours, need to change that one, about 250,000 now with the increased material costs. And the average mortgage payment for a family is around $500 or $600 a month. So currently we have 7 homes under construction all across the island, 3 in Puna, 3 in Kauai High, and 1 in Ocean View. And we're always looking for volunteers. We generally take volunteers on Saturdays. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. The funding sources that we utilize, one, we have a great partnership with Department of Hawaiian Homes, so that takes the land cost out of most of our builds. We have home funds from the federal government. We recently received some money from the county as well, especially for the disaster recovery in 2018. And we utilize USDA 502 loans. We have 2 staff members that are loan qualified originators for 502. So we're always looking for opportunities. Currently, we're in discussions with the county about some property on Hamakua coast and a private investor. So we also have 3 restores on the island that kind of support the operations. So any chance to donate or shop at the restores is benefiting affordable housing. So I don't know if there's specific questions that you had or how much time I had to go on, but I could ramble for a while if you wanted.
That was fantastic. One question was that you share your contact information. So
Sure.
you can put that in the chat for anybody online. And my question was, what makes how do you identify a good property?
How do we identify,
A good property.
oh, good property? So we always welcome families that have, that own real estate to apply if it's a tough equation to come up with, being low income and own property. So over the years, we've received donations of lots. A lot of them are in Ocean View and Nana Valley and places like that. So not, kind of more remote places. We purchased some lots using HUD funds in Waikoloa for the Hamakua Nui workforce housing, and did some habitat homes down there. But if you know a family that owns some property, as long as the title is free and clear, they can apply, and we can put them in our, if they qualify, put them in our construction schedule.
Awesome, thank you.
I have a question. A few years ago in IB, there was a small housing development where the purchasers of the property had to collaborate in the construction of their homes. And I don't know what, I don't know whether Habitat engaged in that.
Was it 10 houses?
It was probably 10 houses.
Did you guys do a collaborative subdivision or development with a group of families in Hobby, or does that sound more like Hawaii Island Development Corporation?
The Javi project was the Hawaii Island Community Development Corporation, Keith Kato's group. We did a 10-home blitz build in Kona. We built 10 homes in 10 days in 2017. And in 2012, we did 5 homes in 10 days. But the Javi one was with the Hawaii Island Community Development Corporation. Very similar, great program, self-help, and it's home ownership.
Most people had to sweat equity to build their home, right?
Correct.
Habitat does that too.
Same.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, let me see if there's any comments in the chat. As far as this one. Yes. I will add that to my list. Thank you. Okay, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us, and have a good evening. We appreciate your time very much.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will put my information in the chat box.
Excellent, thank you. One last note from my community report is that I am hosting 2 homebuyer education classes this month. The first one is on January 18th at Manifestation Ohana in Waimea. It's at 5 p.m. and there is an event right to register ahead of time. The second one is in Hilo, it's on January 26th at the Guy Hot Dog. Well, with an event right registration. And I will leave flyers to be posted in front of the theater, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. That was an extremely interesting presentation. I appreciate very much. Another interesting presentation is likely coming up. Brad, you have a report on the YPO.
Just a very brief one that I thought I was going to just include, the.
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brad Krakawa, and I am one of the members, 4 members of the YPO Waipana subcommittee, and there's not a whole lot to report right now. Basically, we're waiting. Our role basically is to kind of serve as a community liaison with the broader steering committee that has been formed. We've heard some input from some community members, and we're going to just open that up. I'm just going to basically report what we've done so far, which hasn't been a whole lot. And I have, we had a report, a meeting, subcommittee meeting with Heather Kimball, who gave us a report of their last steering committee meeting, and then sort of briefed us on the history. It's in the meeting minutes of last meeting that we had. So you can check that out. And then as Heather mentioned, in late February, late January or February, they're planning to schedule, they're in the process of scheduling that broader Whitefield steering committee, which will include a variety of different stakeholders. And we have two members, actually just one member, that I'll be participating on that on behalf of the action committee subcommittee, reporting back to the action committee. So at this time, what I wanted to do was open it up to input that we, I think if anybody from the public or online wanted to provide some input on this issue, that we appreciate it. So, do you have anybody here in person? Is that right?
Okay, aloha. Mahalo to the Hamakua CDP for taking this role with the Whitefield community, and mahalo for being here in person tonight. Also mahalo to the Whitefield Ohana online here and in person. I know it was short notice, so mahalo for taking the time to be here. So this sub-action committee was formed several meetings ago at the request to see how this could work in tandem with the work going on at Whitefield at the lookout and through many different avenues that's been happening for many generations to look at how to preserve, protect, and perpetuate the traditions, the culture, and the Ohana ways of Whitefield. I did want to make one note, if it would be possible to get earlier public notice for rescheduled meetings. It was a bit difficult to communicate out this rescheduling, having only found out last week, Wednesday. So if there's a way to get earlier notice for that, so we can get it out to community members in a timely manner. Again, I want to thank those that came in person today as well. One thing, I know we're still in the early stages of this, but I kind of want to touch on what was mentioned earlier about the storm for Whitefield. It's unfortunate, you know, that not only the storm impacted every community, but there's a lot of enforcement issues that are happening in Whitefield right now, and not enough support for the community. In other words, like when there's emergency road closures and weather-related closures, there's really not appropriate agencies that enforce those things. It's left to the community members as well as the information officer at the top, and it's kind of a overbearing thing. And you're also facing just trying to get restoration of the water, the roadways. So if there's a possibility through Heather on here and through this committee as well to kind of elevate some type of enforcement around emergency and weather-related closures. I really want to open it up to if there's any community of Whitefield that wants to share. Initially, we had discussed about Whitefield community coming and helping the sub-action committee to help understand about what Wahikana is. I don't think this is an appropriate time and scope given the short notice, but I know there are people here that are very knowledgeable and have been here a long time, as well as their families, and contributed to the knowledge base that's within the Hamakua CDP that exists today. One thing I wanted to add was also for this sub-action committee, one issue we have had a tremendous time with in the steering committee and seems to keep going is this critical need to define community through the lens of Whitefield. So oftentimes within communities, there's concentric rings that goes out from, say, your hale, your pauhale, your neighborhood, which in old times would have been your ili, your adjacent ilis, your Hamakua. Today, that includes those who are maybe not within that same structure as Whitefield understands it. A good example would be during the storm. We've all been working on different parts of the Whitefield issue. many great people in our community. We're called back to our duties. We're called back to our duty to make sure that everything can function and carry on post our challenges. However, at the same time, our definitions of community per management, per stewardship, per longevity of those resources oftentimes includes these outer rings of decision-making for those who maybe do not live in my field, not work in my field, do not sustain livelihood in my field. Which input is always welcome, but to what degree and how will that affect the future? Especially for the kahua of the families and the mahiai, the practitioners of the ohana, who consider this place their pula'i'i, their homeland. So just wanted to bring that to the surface for this committee early on, if we can have some type of, not necessarily process, but medium to find out how we can define community and concentric rings for our field in relationship to decisions that are made for long-term management. With that, I would like to invite any other members of our community that are online and in person here to talk story. Mahalo.
Are there? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Jim Kane. My family and I have been blessed to call Waipio Valley our adopted home for 35 years now. My parents, my wife's parents, final resting place, children were born and raised, and now my grandchildren putting their clothes in the mud and following footsteps of those who came before us. And you know, sometimes we take for granted, I think, you know, those of us who've been honored to sit with Grandma Ruth, the chemo, the Sui, Uncle Olu, Auntie Gladys, and then it goes on and on. Who, you know, have taught us the old ways, and not ways that you stay stuck in the mud kind of ways, but the values that guide our everyday actions. And it was going on 25 years ago now that the sisters Keko'olani educated us on what does Waipio mean and how does that relate to this very special place of Waipio Valley. And it's easy enough to look that up in the dictionary, Waipio. Well-remembered place, cherished place, important place, many different reasons. And in my perspective, being in Waipio Valley, growing taro, raising family, and again, getting to learn this from Una, is that it's a place that connection has never been broken. There are not many places like that left anymore. And yes, there are protocols in Waipio Valley. There is a hierarchy. And it would be really a terrible loss if we cut that out. And again, for many reasons. Ia I Waipio pakalana, pai kapu oli loa. The chants, that comes from the name chant for Kamehameha. It talks about some of this history that goes back centuries. Centuries. It was one of the first places settled, certainly on this island, if not on the Philippines. And so as we work hard to keep going forward, take care of this very special place, and agree with Mr. Leia, we have to make sure the Waipio voice is front and center when these decisions are being made. And to all my friends here on this action committee, and I salute you folks. Not just for Waipio, but this whole Hamakua, very special district that affects this whole island. And volunteering your time. Thank you folks for hosting us tonight with this meeting. But there is one thing missing on the action committee, not just that, the whole action committee, there's nobody from Waipio. we worked really hard during the formation of that, with good people sitting on that committee, just as there's good people on the action committee. But moving forward, we worked really hard to have that Wahipana included. Policy 52, I believe. And the idea of how do we better receive all the people who want to come? How do we share the culture? And talk about cultural center, heritage, not a visitor center, but it's a place to share a culture in a more appropriate, more formal way. And we can do this. We've been mentioned at the steering committee. We got to do this, guys. And especially us white people folks who've been part of this. And all the other people who come white people want to take care. We really don't know how. But we got to do this. The time is now. This is our time in this long and cherished and storied past. And we have to do this to make it safe for everybody, to make it appropriate for everybody, and to make sure white people continues to be this abundant, productive place for food, to raise our families, to teach all these life lessons that are so important. So again, thank you for moving forward. I do hope that we can get somebody with your voice on this action committee, and folks have put in application, and I hope that could be considered. But we look forward to working with you. And Brad, I'm so glad that you're joining us in the steering committee to move forward as we seek to take care of
hopefully that would be more the cameras range. Perhaps it'll pick up the individual speaking.
Is there anyone here, anyone else that likes to provide additional input? Come on up. You're gonna believe we had some people online right now.
Thank you. Yes. Would we love to get somebody? Yeah. Oh, no, please.
Yeah.
Mahalo to the Hamakua CDP members, groups, the Ohana, like the Ohana. Mahalo. My name is Ursula Uivan Chong. I am a resident of Waimea. My Ohana, we have this property in Paracalo, in Waipio Valley. We also, my husband's family have their own Ohana land down in Waipio. And so we go down weekly to care for our local. So I don't often come up and attend these meetings, so please bear with me. I'm gonna try and focus on 3 things. First is community comes to mind when I think about Waipio. And I actually looked it up. I looked up the definition of community. And so community is a body of people. I'm not saying it exactly like how it's written, but that reside in the area, and they have things in common. And it doesn't ever mention tourists. So anyway, I have to say it that way, because when we live and gather as a community, whether you're a fisherman, a teacher, or a farmer, or you know how to help out with the ocean surveys, look at our ocean people. You're all part of the community, and it's important for us to include, like, when we're gonna talk about some concerns about our white people community. We want to offer a seat at the table for all the different parts of our community, whoever you are, if you're a fisherman, hula, la'au, medicine person. Yeah, we want you to come. Surfers, come. Ohana, come. So community, when I think of that also, just by looking at the view from entering at the top at Wa'ikea. We drive down that road weekly, once a week, that's what we can afford. The children and my adult children. Just driving down that road. So the second thing I want to talk about is when we think about the idea of Wahipana, the entrance already tells us.
Well, you've got 2 levels here.
Oh,
so
okay. Thank you. And when you enter into a PO, it already just the design and the layout of the road speaks to us, and it says there's only a limited amount of people that can access that space, and that's only just entering. As you enter into the valley, the road says to pay attention to the cars that are coming up the road and the space, right? You measure the space, you look at your truck. Anyway, so it already says it's a limited amount of traffic that can go in and out of the valley. And that's without me having a personal opinion about anything. That's just the land speaking for itself. And once you get down there, right, and you look at the storm and the one that is greater than me. We are the caretakers, and actually the Mananui, right? The one that is the one that cares for white people itself. You know, these things happen, and we, as the caretakers, are reminded. We're reminded that white people things will happen the way it will happen because of the natural course of nature. And we are reminded that we, as the people who are the caretakers, let's work together, let's lean on each other. And Hamakua CDP committee members, like Uncle had mentioned on this action committee, because they're speaking about like the ohana that are down in the valley, which we're still trying to figure out how we can identify what our concerns are, or some of the damages from this recent storm are. And, you know, while we are trying to figure it out in our own families, we also want to share some of that with each other, because like in my area, Jinping, Kakalaos, and Chauncey guys, you know, we have our little section in YPO or Ilana. You know, we want to be able to work together and figure out the water flow, because water, really, without water, we don't have our crops can't grow. So when I speak about our little ohana in that area, when we are allowed a seat at the table for this action committee, but you can get a lot of information from the people who are actually touching the land. Because that's our access to know from our Apua, from white people, what are the next action steps that we need to take for our space in our area, for our kahawaii, for our awai. So yeah, having someone like Ohana from white people who actually are down in the valley to be on the committee, very helpful. And not only helpful, but it can, then you would know what the needs are. Just by having one of us on the committee. Then one other thing that comes to mind as I mentioned, action committee. I was sitting down and I was like, okay, wait, there's a steering committee. There's a like white people subcommittee, and now there's a like sub-action committee. I am like mind blown. I don't even know what the roles and the functions of each committees are. That's overwhelming for me. And so maybe an update on what each committee is doing. I don't even know. Or can you guys work? Is everyone able to collaborate so we can just get one updated report? That would really help us as a community to start discussing some of the immediate concerns, which are like the road. That's an immediate concern, so we can access the valley. And then other like, future plans moving forward. So yeah, that was the three things that came to mind as I'm speaking, and thank you for your time. Aloha.
Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Bob Nishimoto, and with Jim Kane. Jim Kane and I were in aquaculture class together for 30 years ago. Jim taught me more about being a newcomer to Whitefield than I taught him about aquaculture. So whatever Jim told me, I really took it to heart. I'm a member of the Action Committee. I was appointed by Valerie Poindexter. I really understand where the Whitefield voice is. And again, it may not be, Valerie may be very upset with me, but I would be more than happy for someone from Whitefield to take my seat. Because I think it's.
Can you face the computer? They can't hear you. Sorry. Yeah, just like that.
Okay, you're good? Okay. I think it's important that we consider this, and let me explain to you why. I am not Hawaiian. I'm a Sansei. My parents came over as sugar workers. I have no ownership to this land, but I'm so grateful that the Hawaiian culture, that we can accept it and use it. And this whole sense of community, again, my roots really end up for 3 generations. After the war, we have no connection to Japan. My DNA is at my temple in Ninole or my graveyard in Ninole. That's where it all starts, no more than probably less than 100 years ago. So where is our culture? Where are our roots? And this is what my thought. I'm a member of CERT also, like one of you mentioned that. Lapoihoi CERT. I'm the only local member. They're good people in the mainland. They tell me, Bob, why aren't the locals coming and join the CERT meeting? Why aren't they helping out? Why aren't they go to the CPR exercises and all? You know? And I says, let me explain to you, being local, people from the mainland that come here are very verbal. Everything is talk, and meetings. I understand that. But I told this person, I guarantee you, when disaster hits in Hamakua and Ninola, where we live in close by, people will come with a tractor, they will come with the hose, say, hey, bro, can I help you? I said, you don't realize it. You know, you never may not even wave at you, but I guarantee you, you know, when you went to PTA, what you're eating that night for dinner is the other sense. Okay. To me, this is what I call community. This is local awareness. You know, is this the local style? You know, and I think it's really important. You know, this whole essence of what Waipio is and practices for generations. Is this kind of respect and connectivity, you know, that we can all along Hamakua adopt as a way of life, you know, because locals, Hawaiians don't go out and impress upon you about their culture. It's a matter of respect and listening first. You know, this is why I would very much like to have someone from my field. I was very happy to resign. And hopefully we can legally have someone from you take that position, because this issue is more than about white peel. It's more than, you know, white peel. This is the essence of our island. This is the essence of Hamakua. You know, and this seems to be willing to teach us, you know, to share how it's done. You know, unfortunately, a lot of them are trained in the mainland. You know, we really are very much disjointed from Pacific Island culture. You know, and Waipio is one of the few remaining parts, like here in Maui, for example, where the Pacific Island culture sits. This is what I like to call local. But anyway, I'll stop here. And again, Jim, you know, maybe I'm stepping out of line, but I really wouldn't mind at all resign from this committee, someone take my position, because I want you to share that culture and what feel is along the whole Hamakua coast, and maybe we can do that. You know, I live in Ninole. Ninole is there's nothing in Ninole. The only thing around of history is the post office, the second world in the world, in the United States, and our temple. That's it. No more. That's my roots. So how do we? What can I hang on to? What can we hang on to? Say this is us. You know, and I know because you know we practice a government, so you have all these committees, and that's kind of is the essence of how it should be done. But at the same time, the part is missing. So again, you know, I may have to talk to someone maybe from CDP group that I could do that. I really like to do that. So thank you so much.
Bobby, thank you very much. We don't need you to resign. We have 8 members on a 9-member committee right now, so we have open space, and so we'd love to have all of you participate. Laraki.
Aloha kako. Lanakila Menguel from right here in Hamakua. Many of you know, I've been an educator in this community since I graduated. I grew up in Waipio Valley. I have Kulana Aina down there as well right now with the Pahio Ohana. And yes, Waipio, I'm very honored to see some of my uncles here, Tupuna, and neighbors, and all Aloha Aina. And you know, I think I just really want to mention, let's not beat around the bush. We know white people have a lot of things that we've been trying to work out. I've been brought to the meeting since I was this tall, and we've heard, and we're trying to malama and get these things settled. And that it is a mahipana. It's a very special place, and everyone loves and cares for this place very passionately. And I think what we're being called to task is if we're not willing to sit down and truly listen and converse, then what I just want to bring it and just call it out that what we have witnessed, what we've all witnessed, is divisions and infighting and outfighting, and that's been unfortunately, the wheels spinning for too long. And really, white people deserves better than that. I don't want to see, for myself personally, just anybody just trying to vie to try to get their voices in the very front of everybody else, because then that's not true to speaking to the community either. We need to be able to, as a ohana of white people, and that's the collective for many of us who have Aina that we malama white people, who have mo'oku au hau to white people, but we know that white people was also the access point for all of the Hamakua ohana, or for many across this up on the Pali. It's one of the few places to access the kai. And so it was a special place for many. And it took many hands to take care of white people. White people today, what we know and see white people today is not the white people even of the 1940s. There was much more Aina open. There was much more locals back then. The local, the fish ponds was all cared for because there was many more hands willing to work together. And it really was also everyone working together and allowing others in their places that they work or that they live to alaka'i the work in that space. And that's okay. Let us all kako together. So I just really want to call that for us all, and to the CDP taking on this next kuleana. Just like I think we were saying too, I mean, there is so many different white people groups, committees. They've been around for a long time, brand new ones all going around, and we tend to end up having the same conversation 50 times, and then we forget we had the conversation, we have them again. And so I think this is it's a very important time if we really want to see things step forward, that we have to get together collectively. We have to be willing to open up and ho'olono, even just because we just did the ho'olohe, the listening with the ear for a long time, but not really settling in. And I think it's this year in the exact same call, there is kuleana to the valley. There is a need for us to get together collectively. And I think that's going to be very important. We have to get together and have those serious discussions. And that's, I think, collectively finding that representation, collectively coming to an agreement in our community to select and to support someone to then be the liaison to have the discussions with our county, with state, and as we need to access those things to help malama our white people too. So just really want to just call our community to task, and it's an important thing that we both rise to the occasion, but also humble ourselves to be able to sit at those circles and have those important conversations. So, mahalo.
Brad, do you have anything else to say? Is there anyone online who would like to address this topic?
Please. This is Melanie. Aloha, everyone. Aloha, Hamakua, CDP. I would like to just thank everybody who spoke on behalf of YPO. And I agree with most of what everyone had to share. I would also like to reiterate, although it is nice to have people to just cut to the chase, I'm gonna say internal and external, which is what Lei had created for the CDP. There is a need for kokua from the external community, and there is a need for leadership. However, I think the internal community should have the last say of what really happens in YPO. I agree with Ui when she says about community, and I know what she really means when she's saying community is the internal community. There's a lot of stuff that we have to put on the side to help YPO come forward, but I think if we, like Lanakila said, continually work together and let me see, Auntie Alberta said it best when I spoke to her, is everyone come together and show their true hearts and their aloha and malama for YPO. I think that'll be a great way for all of us to come together. I would like to encourage the county, and I understand that you got to be diplomatic, but I would like to encourage the action committee and the county of Hawaii and their admin to really listen to the internal community, because like Ui said and Jim said, we live there. We know YPO the best, because we spend the most time there. Uncle Jason once said when he and I first met, that one time he saw Hi'ilave flowing both sides, and he knew just by looking at Hi'ilave from his aina how long it would take for him to pack up his ohana and leave. Those are things that you can't grasp if you're not a part of that immediate community. And I think that kind of ike is what is needed to help my people move forward. And Bob, I really don't want you to leave this action committee, because we all hold the essence of Hamakua. I grew up Hamakua 45 years now. I've been blessed to be a part of YPO since I was in middle school, and more intimately for the past 26 years. And I feel that if we all, as the community, we have some stuff to work out, but if everybody can just, Lay says it best when she says, move at the speed of trust. And there's a lot of that we need as a community to get over. However, when we see each other doing good, I believe that we should elevate each other. And through protocol not only being our ollies and our chants when we get to the top of YPO, but protocol knowing that each of the organizations in YPO, within YPO, have their kuleana to their places that they malama. So I just ask the action committee to really support what our community is saying deeply and full-heartedly. It's our home. Like, I wouldn't tell Brad what to do in Papaiko, or tell Bob or Nikki what to do in Hakala or Ninole, because that's their aina. I would support them because they know that place the best. And that's really all I'm asking. Mahalo.
Is anyone else in Zoom wanting to testify at this time? Thank you.
My name is Richard Beidelman. I live here in Honikawa. I'm relatively new here, but I've lived on the island for 15 years. And one of the things that I attended a previous meeting dealing with Waipio Valley. And it's my understanding that the mayor has put together a committee to deal with the issue. And I don't know, is that going to be the committee that makes the final decisions? If it is, then we need somebody from at least one person from the action committee to be on that committee. Now, I think one of the things that I see people wrestling with here is I've heard a number of people say that the Waipio Valley is a national treasure. And if it is truly a national treasure, then we got to be willing to share it with the rest of the people in the United States, not just the islands. And people, as we know, a lot of people come to visit, and that's not going to be an easy thing to resolve, but I think we got to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad, do you have anything else?
I wasn't really prepared to come and speak, but for me, I go back to the horses and you. That's how we started with you. My grandpa was known as the king of Whitefield. You know, it's hard. It's hard to be being raised among all the old people, and to have somebody from elsewhere come and speak for our community. The stand that was made up at the lookout, it was a stand to let people know that Waipio is a community of its own. There is a line there where it divides Waipio from the rest of life. And I think we made it known that Waipio stands as a community and is something different from the rest of the island. Like I said, I wasn't really prepared to come up and talk. But it's hard for me to sit and listen to a lot of things that you've been taught. And, you know, to make something simple, you know, instead of a lot of planning, the plan was already made long time ago. It was made by our ancestors. The only thing we have to do is follow what our ancestors did. Being up at the lookout, I could see a lot of things that was happening up there. And it has to be, we have to start at the top. Take care of what all the negative things up at the top that flows down into Waipio. And with the 5 ways, there has been the arms and the legs for the kupunas, the elders of Waipio. We will document everything, document all the negative things that is happening in Waipio. And it's not so much about people. The negative things that I'm talking about is all the negative and invasive things that makes it hard to farm in Waipio. The farmers have been so busy farming and not paying attention to what's been happening. So I think we need to pay more attention with the invasive things that is making it hard for the farmers in Waipio. And I think we will accomplish that. We will document all of these things. We will document what the farmers just is going through right now with what happened with the flood and the winds that we had in Waipio. And the farmers alone already have started. You know, we can do it, and we will do it. And we will document all the kupunas before us that we have learned from. You know, this is not a theatrical thing. It is a real thing, and we have to deal with this thing. Like even the road, they open up the road they say they clean up the road. I can see there is a dangerous spot right there. Somebody's gonna get hurt. And these people have to wake up and recognize what is going on. And for all the hard work that the girls have been making, it's not in vain. We will be heard. Thank you.
I'm going to have to cut short the discussion of YPO as Wahipana. There's a number of other items on our agenda that I think we need to address. You know, the planning department has made it clear to us that the real work of the Community Development Plan Action Committee should take place in the subcommittees. And as for instance, the YPO subcommittee, the YPO as Wahipana subcommittee. And so I think our next order of business will be to discuss other possibilities, other interests that we might have as potential subcommittees. And a couple of those have been listed here on our agenda. The first that's cited here is the Zoning and Subdivision Code Revision Subcommittee. As was mentioned earlier, there is very active discussion now about revision of the subdivision and zoning code. And perhaps the best way for our action committee to stay abreast of this would be to have a subcommittee formed for the purpose of communication back and forth from our committee, from our action committee to the planning department and vice versa. And so I wonder if there's any discussion about establishment of a zoning and subdivision code revision subcommittee. What's that?
I don't think we need a separate a lot of the time.
The comment was that we probably did not need a separate subcommittee for that purpose. Any other comments in regards to that? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to comment on that issue? Is there a motion that there would be a subcommittee formed of zoning and subdivision code revision? No such motion. Let's move on to the second issue, and that is a Lahua Street infrastructure subcommittee. There has been a new subdivision, which is being established on Lahua Street. And it's been discussed in our action committee previously that the infrastructure for that subdivision is woefully inadequate. And therefore, the suggestion has been made that a subcommittee for the purpose of looking at that infrastructure, particularly sidewalks from that subdivision down into Hamakua town, would become the subject of a subcommittee. Is there a motion for that establishment of subcommittee? Anyone on? I'm sorry.
I don't have a motion for it yet, but I know.
Would you like to comment here?
My comment regarding establishing more committees is that we would need to have more participation in the AC. So you need to hear back from, I guess, the mayor's office, who is reviewing applications as far as how many applications and where they're at in the process. And if we can have more members, it's easier to create more committees, otherwise we're burdened with doing multiple committees. And the work gets less productive. So that would be my thought at this time. That's just me personally.
Thank you. One comment in regards to that is that we have 4 committee members who are actually extended. They have their term on the committee has expired, but their terms are extended at this point. And Brad and Nikki are 2 of them, and we have had expressions from 3 of those those committee members that until a replacement is found for them, that they would like to continue to serve on this committee. And one other committee member has not been in communication with me, and consequently, I will try to contact her verbally to discover whether she would like to continue her service. Is there a motion among the committee members to establish a subcommittee for the Lahua Street subdivision infrastructure development? No motion to that effect at this point. Yes.
I think maybe Mahia's mic might be still on live, and therefore we cannot see the current speaker here on this screen on our side.
I think it's a view.
Gallery.
Yeah.
That just shows all of them, but
Yes.
Okay.
I came before the action committee maybe several meetings ago, suggesting that we needed a subdivision, a subcommittee for Lahua Street. Now, maybe I happen to live on Lahua Street. But what I think what a lot of people in the community don't realize is there are going to be 40 new homes built on Lahua Street, plus the fact that the community college is expanding their facility, and the medical center is going to be building out on Lahua Street. I mean, it's like there's a renaissance happening on Lahua Street. I mean, I don't know any place else in our district where there's as much stuff going on as there is. And I think that, I mean, I'd like to see other people in the community. You don't necessarily live on Lahua Street, but we're all going to be affected by it. And we, by the way, we have no sidewalk. We have no walking trails or sidewalks any place on, there are 4 or 5 major streets that come off of the Belt Road, and not one has a walking path or a sidewalk. And this is not a plantation community anymore. It's becoming urban. I mean, this is just the beginning of this type of a development. And and for those of us who live here, we need to pay attention. Anyway, I'd like to see them establish a subcommittee.
Yes, I agree personally that there is a need for a subcommittee for the Lahua Street subdivision infrastructure. I would volunteer to be on that subcommittee. So if there, and the important thing to know for those of you on Zoom and in the audience here is that a subcommittee is made up of members of the action committee, but also incorporates individuals from the community. And consequently, certainly you, Mr. Bideman, and perhaps some of your other friends who live on Lahua Street might want to connect with me, and we can try to see what we can formulate as far as a conversation with the county on this. Yes. I'd like to make a motion that a subcommittee on Lahua Street subdivision infrastructure be formed. Is there a second?
I second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, Rhonda. Oh,
Aye.
okay, thank you. And then it is the case that there was a number of subcommittees previously that were formed. I'm not sure if they went by the name subcommittee, but I know that I was on the Trails and Access committee or subcommittee. But our reorganization, since the planning department has left us more or less on our own, is that we will take up subcommittee consideration as problems arise. Yes, trails and access is a problem, but there's an immediacy to the problem of, say, for instance, the Lahua Street infrastructure that perhaps is lacking in some of the other subcommittees. So if individuals from the public or individuals on the committee see a need for a particular subcommittee, please bring that forward at a subsequent meeting. And then the next item on the agenda is Action Committee Community Outreach Strategy. Is there any comment on that item of the agenda from our audience here or from our Zoom audience? You know, I think,
I'm really good at
yeah, right. Yeah, I think actually what this may be in reference to is communication number 31. And again, for those of you from the public who have not seen the agenda and the communications, you may want to, there's a agenda available that you can certainly look at. And accessing the Hamakua Community Development Plan online will show you all of these communications. But the communication number 31 is actually a paper that I wrote, which is an introduction of the Action Committee to any entity that we might wish to address ourselves to or make ourselves available to. And for instance, the planning department early on in the formation of the Hamakua CDP had presented us with a diagram of all of our entanglements with the community, all of our relationships with the various organizations in the community. And yes, I think our perhaps what we needed to do was to interact with those community organizations to make their wishes known to us and to communicate what our interests are. But that two-way street, I'm not sure has actually developed. And so this communication number 31 is merely an effort that I made to try to present just a 3-paragraph introduction of ourselves and how we would like to develop communication with these various groups. The particularly the Hamakua community, or excuse me, the Hamakua Times has expressed a interest in printing our agenda and minutes on a monthly basis. And the Hamakua Times is distributed to all box holders in Honokaa, I think all the way down to Papaloa. But of course, this leads on further toward Hilo without that means of communication. I certainly had intended to speak to, and in fact, I did put in a call to the editor of the Tribune Herald to see if they would print on a monthly basis our agenda and minutes. However, he did not return my call, so I will. I'll be following up on that. And the next item on the agenda is an action committee support letter for Hakalau School. Yes.
I see number 29. I don't
Not
see
30.
number 30.
Yeah, you know, there were two letters that I wrote actually, and it was number 31.
The red one packet though?
No,
It's
no.
not in-
And it's actually 31 that is more related to outreach. And 29 is probably something that is more relevant to the discussion of other action committees, relationship with other action committees.
That it?
It's supposed to be in that movie packet.
Oh, the Hakalau School,
Oh, number 30, whatever number one you're next to, not in fact.
it's in my packet. Number 31 is here.
What page?
What's that? It's the last page.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to find it.
No, thank you for staying clear on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great.
So the next item on the agenda is the support letter for Hakalau School. Brad, I think you actually.
So the letter that was written on behalf of our committee is addressed to the superintendent of DOE, Department of Education, and also CC to Heather and also to the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Basically, the project is we have Hakalau School, which is not being taken care of. And it's sort of a waste. And so what we're doing, a nonprofit that I'm involved with has been taking care of that school for the last, coming up on 8 years. Every month, we do cleanup because otherwise the building would just be taken over by the jungle. And so right now it's in a stalemate between the Department of Education and DLNR. The DLNR will not accept the property back from the DOE, and DOE is supposed to abate the lead on the old foundation and on the new buildings. And they just assume have it all down, but nothing, we wouldn't want that. It's a perfectly good question. No, it's just an abandoned building that is doing nothing. So we have been maintaining the grounds. We had a permit, temporary permit to be on the grounds. And we've spent lots of hours, volunteer hours and manpower. And we've also been paying for insurance so that we can be on the grounds and have liability for our being there to take care of it. And so anyway, basically, just want to say It's part of the CDP in terms of the community's desire is to basically have the DOE or the Illinois turn it over to community for a long-term lease so that we can take care of it.
Have you considered
It's not really open space. Well, it's open space in the field. Uh-huh.
that there's already
Right. Well, we can certainly look into that. So, but also we're asking here is this letter from the CDP Action Committee to those agencies to please work with us, and then we can present some of these options. We have support from the Hawaii Historic Foundation, the state organization. Yeah. Okay, so we will follow up on that. So anyway, just hoping for support from the committee. So, yeah. Sure.
Brad, what's the school rate used for?
What we'd like to do is use it as a community learning center so that we can provide classes that are interesting or of interest to the community. And then also from a resilience standpoint, it can be a community hub for, when emergencies do happen, it can be a place to gather and mobilize. So.
So we need a motion for submitting the letter.
Yes,
Brad, you make the motion.
Do you make the motion?
I'll make the motion to support sending that letter.
If we send discussion, if we send the letter in and then you keep in mind if you want to prompt, if anything hurts.
No,
Okay, great.
that's second by Bob. Okay.
Yes, we've had a motion and a second to send the letter, which is communication number 30 to the department. which- Yeah, and all in favor? Aye. Yes?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the status on all action committees discussion. This, I think I was probably the genesis of this particular item. And my interest is that there are issues that all of the action committees have in common. And, but we're kind of separated into our own boxes. Well, I had the good fortune of attending the Kona Community Development Plan meeting this afternoon, and they also have a very strong interest in the relationship of all of the community development plans. And particularly, how are those plans relating to the planning department? And what is the nature of that relationship? And there was an hour-and-a-half discussion of that particular problem. It was extremely exciting, extremely interesting, and probably the person who generated that discussion is Chuck Flaherty. And Chuck may still be online. Is Chuck still here? Yeah. Chuck, would you like to give a synopsis of what that discussion was about?
I'm
Perhaps.
sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm having problems with my
Thank you.
my
Thank you
computer.
for staying on for.
No worries. I apologize for the delay there. My computer is what do you call anyway? So yes, thank you. I'm very glad that you attended the meeting today at Kona Community Development Plan Action Committee. Personally, just very quickly for just so you all know, I participated in the Kona Community Development Plan from it was the first plan that was started back in 2005. The first big issue was whether or not to have two plans, one for North Kona, one for South Kona, and Mayor Kim and then Planning Director Chris Hewen decided to have a Kona Community Development Plan, so we went forward from there. We had a consultant from the mainland we first had about 120 small community meetings. Then we had charrettes at the Keoho Beach Hotel that were hugely attended, massive participation, thousands of comments. Additional funding was provided, and we then created working groups that were based on the different sections of the general plan, or elements as they're referred to in the general plan, such as land use, cultural resources, energy, transportation, to put together the comments and went forward from there to develop the Kona Community Development Plan. And subsequent to that, there were the intentions of the community that there would be a partnership between the planning department and the Kona Community Development Plan Action Committee, the Action Committee and the Planning Department, in which this partnership, there would be a means by which the community could come to the Action Committee, also be representatives of the community from the different sectors, and to basically advocate for and assist in the implementation of the community development plan. What happened, though, was with the subsequent administration and planning director was that the planning department sort of took over and disenfranchised the community, and so interest faded away. It seemed that other action committees were experiencing the same issue. I've taken the time to go through y'all's CDP and the Hamakua CDP, and am very struck by how different it is from the Kona CDP. And that's one of the big issues I think that are facing us today, because I want to move forward. I want us to move forward. I don't want this to be about criticism. I want us to move forward. And so in order to move forward, I really think there has to be a basis upon which we can look at how are the CDPs similar, how are they different, and really overarching all of this is the fact that we have the general plan that empowered the CDPs, and then we had the creation of the CDPs. Unfortunately, there was no guidance that was given to all the different CDPs as to how they would be structured. So rather than the Kona CDP, for instance, stating that, showing exactly how it lines up with the general plan, the subsequent CDPs that were developed with the consultants did not have that similar structure. And then when you get to the Hamakua CDP, which was passed in 2018, which was about 10 years, it was 10 years after the Kona CDP and Puna, and South Kohala as well. You see that there really is a big difference between the plans and what the process had been. So I think that in order for the action committees to be reinvigorated and for community participation and involvement, I have to say that I'm really super impressed. I super appreciate the community involvement I saw here today, and the participants today for your CDP action committee. It exceeds those things that I've seen on the Kona side. So congratulations to you all. You have a very vibrant community and a really great basis upon which to stand. The problem is that it's not clear what your authority is and what your responsibilities are and what is that of the planning department. And that uncertainty, and given the complexity and the kuleana that's associated with the CDP, the Hamakua CDP, if you read it, it's just massive, and the responsibilities and the things that are to be done are as far reaching as you can possibly imagine. So asking community volunteers to take on that kuleana and themselves without the professional assistance of the department that administers, that is the planning department, helping with the administration of the community development plans, is problematic. And so I really believe that I would hope that the current general plan revision, which this is so complex, and I'm probably throwing more at y'all than and not organizing it well, but the general plan is being revised. Unfortunately, the revision is not referencing the prior plan. In 2005, when the general plan was revised, it had a Ramsayer format where, from the 1989 general plan that struck out what was removed and underlined what was added. So it was very clear the changes that were being made. The new revision that's being done has no reference whatsoever to the old general plan. So we don't know what's been removed. We don't know what's being added. We don't know what the impact is going to be on administration in any of the departments, as far as public works, planning, all of administration. We don't know the impact on prior legal precedents. So a lot of questions are being created by this. And I really think that what the solution to this is that the CDPs get revised as they are required to be every 10 years. Along with the general plan, and that there be a uniformity of structure, using the similarities between the plans, but recognizing all of the unique differences that each of the communities have identified. For instance, today I was very struck by and have been following the issue of the Waipio Valley and the access road. That is a very unique situation for your particular area and the residents there and the ohana in that area. Whereas, in Kona, we have there were just different issues. It's far much more, well, I mean, South Kona being agricultural, North Kona being more urban. We have a lot to cover there too, but again, the different regions are very different, but in many ways we're facing, environmental protection, cultural resource protection, public access, renewable energy, preserving agriculture, affordable housing. All of these are very similar issues. And I think that it would be the joint committee, action committee that's being formed, I think is an attempt to bring this together. But when you have these different CDPs that aren't organized similarly, it kind of makes it difficult to tackle on, for instance, a revision of the flood control ordinance or revision of the county erosion control ordinance, which everybody agrees needs to be done, or even the revision of the zoning code and the subdivision code. Trying to bring them together is sort of problematic given the way the laws are currently written and structured. And the question as to what is the planning department's responsibility in the assistance of the implementation. It refers to the action committees as being the stewards of the plan, and yet it states that the planning department shall administer the plan. So where do you split the hairs in that? And that's the question that we're being faced in, that was being brought up today. I think it affects all the CDPs, including the Hamakua CDP. I think the planning department, the withdrawal of support is very disturbing because it places so much kuleana on the individual members of the action committee, as well as other community volunteers. I thought that the node project that the planning department did was very interesting, but I also realized that each one of those connections that the action committee members had represented a commitment of their time. I mean, they had that connection with the action committee because they were also spending time with that particular node. And so it's nice to talk about bringing everyone together, But when you're asking people to volunteer, there's a limit to which people have that ability, especially in this day and age with so many distractions and information overload. So I hope I haven't been too long or too unclear, but that's basically what I wanted to share with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Actually, I think your message there is very important. It actually touches on the communication number 29, which I had written, with the intention of sending to all of the members of each action committee. And that communication number 29 is essentially a request that the action committees would have and form on their own a joint action committee meeting. Did you have a sense today in Kona? And I did not actually send that letter, but did you have a sense today in Kona that there would be a willingness for the Kona Community Development Plan Action Committee to join? Or would there be an enthusiasm for them to join a joint meeting of all of the action committees? Well, I'm not sure, but the sense I think that was not actually directly discussed, and so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was muted. My understanding is that there have been past joint committee meetings and that the planning department had asked that 2 representatives be assigned from each action committee. I have not attended any of those, so I'm not sure what transpired. What I know today, though, is that the action committee, the Kona Community Development Plan Action Committee, approved a letter that basically was asking for administrative support and also a legal clarification as to the relationship between the action committee and the planning department. I do know that they're asking for that. And I think the reason is because it's kind of tough to move forward when you're not really even sure what your kuleana is. I think that it would be great for the action committees to come together to be able to be in the same meeting to discuss their shared experiences, both positive and frustrating. I think that would be a very constructive thing to do. But as with the Hamakua Action Committee, most of the members would have been termed out, but their terms have been extended. I do know that it was disclosed today that there were 13 applications that had been submitted for the Kona Community Development Plan Action Committee. So I don't know if that's an indication, what that's indicating, but that's my answer to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Are there any comments from the Hamakua Community Development Plan Action Committee members? No comments?
I'll do really briefly. I'm just going to briefly say that, Chuck, I've been involved in, the CDP process at the beginning as part of the planning department, and it's been a process. And I think that as they've continued on, they continue to learn from their mistakes to a certain degree. And so my suggestion, in terms, because I've been kind of pushing for this all island thing because I'm familiar with a lot of the CDPs throughout the island. I know that there's common issues. And then we have the general plan being updated and the CDPs, some of them need to be updated already. I mean, Puna and you guys. And so my suggestion from having attended the joint AC meetings, I think, in my opinion, there are 2 prescribed by the planning department. And I'm just going to be frank about it. And I think if we want to address some of the kind of systemic issues and structural issues I think we need to sort of, from the community side, kind of take leadership and organize something, and then rather than have them orchestrated, because again, as kind of evidenced by the general plan update, and in my mind, kind of lack of transparency by not showing what's been revised in that process. To me, kind of speaks, says something. So anyway, that's my suggestion. That we just organize and reach out, and then hopefully there is interest in that, and then I think just take the leadership and propose something to the planning department to kind of pull together something to address that in the context of the revised general plan, particularly.
Thank you, Brad. Are there any other comments in regard to this subject? I wonder whether it's appropriate to make a motion that or should we just put this on the agenda for next meeting, that we will discuss a method for
I think the response from that you got in your inquiry was that we can reach out to other HCs.
yes,
correct?
yes.
Right. So it's in the record here.
Yeah.
And we just reach out to them and see if there's that desire and interest, and we gotta put it in a way.
Yes, I was going to send this letter, and then I did not end up sending the letter because I thought it might be most appropriate to actually find out whether our committee felt like it was appropriate to send this letter out to each of the members of all of the other action committees. And so let me ask, is there a consensus, or should we take a vote as to whether it would be appropriate? I'm going to make a motion then that I
Mr.
will
Chair.
send.
Mr. Chair, my apologies for interrupting you, but before you make the motion, I do want y'all to understand that it's very likely the county council will be taking this issue up of playing the relationship between the planning department and the action committees and what's happening right now. It's very possible that will be coming up in the near future. So I would like to let y'all know that, and I don't know if that will influence your decision or any timeline that y'all might be deciding upon. So I apologize for it.
Well, no, that's very important information. But the specific letter which I had written was merely to suggest that a method be formulated to develop a joint action committee meeting with all members of each committee in attendance. And I think one important thing to realize would be that would not be a designated board or commission. Consequently, I think it would be a meeting where no action could be taken, or where no votes would be appropriate, because that committee or that joint committee would have no official status. But I think the important thing is that we would have the ability to discuss our mutual problems all together. And consequently, that was my intent in actually drafting this letter. So I would like to make a motion that I would send the letter which I've written to each member of the various action committees. Would there be a second for that motion? Second. And is there any further discussion? All in favor of sending that letter to each action committee member of each of the various action committees, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? And that was Nikki Hubbard. The motion carries. I will send that letter. Is there the only remaining item of business, I think, would be in determining an appropriate date for our next meeting. And for the 17th, which is a week from now. I'm sorry. Right, yeah. So that would certainly be one, and I think that would be very appropriate. Then I think the vote that would need to be taken would be that we would cancel our meeting for next week. Is there a motion to cancel that meeting?
I don't think we can vote. There's no agenda set. It's already in the expired 16.
Okay,
Can't have a meeting. Didn't publicly post it.
well, that is true also. So no necessity of canceling that meeting. So are there any? I'm sorry?
Would clerk counsel say that we vote not have that?
Hi, Susanna, do we need to vote to not have a meeting next week?
No, you can just cancel it.
Yeah, okay, the meeting is canceled. So our next meeting will be in February, the third week of February. There is however, the problem is that
Heather cannot come.
Heather,
But we don't need her every time.
we don't, that's true. So we can discuss that at our next meeting.
And she can send it with
Yeah.
the report.
That's right. Is there any further business that needs to be, or any announcements that need to be made?
Does anybody have?
I'm sorry?
Does anybody have?
Yes. Would there be suggestions for agenda items for next meeting?
I want to share the telco presentation about their energy solution plan. If we do that presentation, maybe we can have a short agenda.
Yes. Nikki is indicating that she has been in communication and I believe has actually had a presentation, been party to a presentation from Hawaiian Electric in regards to energy resources, future energy resources. And that presentation would be appropriate for a community development plan meeting, action committee meeting. And as Nikki explained that to me, I certainly felt that that was appropriate also. She is suggesting that that could be part of a meeting with a otherwise somewhat shortened agenda. And perhaps that might be able to be arranged for our February meeting. And so I'll go ahead and ask Nikki to see if that might be appropriate. And other agenda items we can discuss at a later time. And we'll be asking for suggestions for agenda items for over the next couple of weeks via email. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, there is. Is there a motion, second to that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good job.
7:30.
Stop recording and save it.
Is there?
Mahalo kako, aloha, haole makahiki ho.
Thank you, Chuck.
ready to start?